first of all thank the Economic Times and Vikas and the team here for inviting us here and to speak on a very, very important topic actually, and that is right science. We have heard that this whole seminar actually is for value-based or cost-based. That's what we heard this morning. We also have heard the perspective of healthcare providers and various viewpoints on the healthcare providers as to, again, how to make it value-based or cost-based. I might just like to recap here. Some of you would already, I'm sure, know that in England, they have this organization, NICE. And unlike in India, a lot of healthcare there is provided by the government. And therefore, they need to look at cost of any product in the context of the value that it adds. So they have something like an arbitrary figure that if a drug improves quality of life, so much rate of improvement in quality of life per year, then they fix a value. Okay, if it is happening in 10,000 pounds or something, then it's part of the government system. So it's very much considering value and adding cost to it. So when we are talking about right science, again, there are many facets to it. We are not going to be able to cover all of them here. But I'm sure we will be able to capture a good amount of it with the esteemed panel that we have here and their great experience that they have had. So this right science is a bit half sentence. Right science for what and for whom? So when we are looking at right science, we are talking of really, again, value addition. So this is one way that you add value, and the other way is to reduce the cost. It ultimately achieve the same thing. But then your right science has to be for unmet needs. What are unmet needs? To somebody's mind, it is cancer. To somebody's mind, it may be neuroinflammatory diseases, Alzheimer's or whatever. While somebody, it may be just women and children. And I'm sure you will all agree that malnutrition in children is very much an unmet need and a neglected topic. But that's not so much so often taken, because while you may add a lot of value, maybe you don't get much benefit of cost in that. But that's another topic. But today we will see as to how right science can be harnessed well in order to have this value addition and at reduced cost. And there are various ways of doing it. And I think one of the key things that is emerging from various discussion also that we have had is a good collaboration. And so I'm going to ask my esteemed panelist here, what are the strategies that you have actually used to for your own product development? Well, actually, a lot of it is already on internet, so most things are known already by people. But I'm going to therefore ask you more story that you have. What have been the pleasures of doing or seeing that your strategies work? But also you must share with us where it didn't work, or what have been the pangs of a drug development that you have faced. After that, my little introductory, this thing, I'm not going to take time off you by asking different questions, but that's what I would like you to share with our audience here, and that's what they would like to know. So we will start with Vikrant. We'll go that way. And Vikrant, yes?
Thank you very much, Doctor. And it's a post-lunch session. And I think the energy is all around here rather than mine. And it's extremely difficult when you really talk about the deep science. But to me, deep science means something which can convert into solution to commercialization, and commercialization to access. And there are 4 layers, from just science for science and science for access and solution. At least I can share our experience that, and this science for innovation is not a custodian of individual. Like if we think that in Novo Nordisk we can find all the solutions for all the insulins or all anti-obesity, I don't think so that's the right way. It can come from anywhere. And that's what we have believed. So there are a lot of scientists, we employ a lot of money just to get some next generation science, but we also do a lot of externalization to get the next level of innovation. And for that, just to give you an example, one can call it a shopping, but in the last 2 years, we collaborated with at least 7 of the organizations like Pharma, Dicerna, and we did a shopping worth $12.5 billion because not everything comes in our laboratories. Now that's a very big number. That's a very big number. And some of those numbers, as we proceed, and I can't divulge some of the names, they don't look as promising as when we were actually buying. Just to give you an example, some 20 years back, we had a joint collaboration for innovation with Dr. Reddy's, and I think that will click the audience. And that innovation, when it failed as an oral tablet for diabetes, I can tell you our shareholder value cut by almost half. So that's a punishment when the innovation doesn't click. But when the innovation clicks, then we also become bigger than the GDP of the Denmark. So you have got both the sides of playing around with an innovation. And so there are success, and then there are failures in innovation. And I am very happy that now in India, coming to India, that we are playing the game of the volume strategy to the value strategy. And we are actually racing towards whether it is PMO office or whether it is industrialist into pharmaceutical industry. We are playing a game of innovation. More and more research papers are coming, and we are plowing more money. And there are PLI schemes which are also getting onto innovation. And I hope so that with this kind of an environment, innovation will see much more faster, birth in India.
I just want to ask a side question to you. Have you been interacting with the academic research institution in India, and what has been your experience there?
Honestly, we did some of the early collaboration, if I can remember, with CDRL and one or two institutes at a primary level. But unfortunately, we are one of the largest companies when it comes to phase 3 trials in India. I can tell you that we do 40 trials in India, but we do it ourselves. For academic institution, the basic research platform, I don't think so we have scratched Indian surface to that extent. And not only us, it was difficult, but now the ground is becoming much more greener.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And I'll just hand over now to Amit, your experience.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. So first, let me share with you what we do, because many of you all would not have heard of Immuneel. We just completed 5 years, and we got an approval a few months ago by the regulator to launch a CAR-T product in India for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. For those of you who would like to read more about CAR-T, this was something which came into this world about 14 years ago, and there was a kid by the name of Emily Whitehead who was infused with this therapy, and she remains cancer-free as of today. It's a groundbreaking therapy. It has shown tremendous results. It is still early science, having said that. This therapy is available for $500,000 at least in the US. And the purpose of setting up this company by my co-founders was to actually bring in this therapy to the 100,000 Indians who are suffering from blood-related malignancies. We've tried to solve for cost to start with. And today we are offering this therapy at 10%, even less than 10% of the cost of what it is in the US. Our goal is to bring it to less than 5%. Having said that, there are many things that need to work for this goal to be met. And this is where this, the whole concept, ma'am, of jointly innovating comes into play, whether it's academic research institutes, whether it's the other manufacturers and suppliers of input materials and equipments, and whether it's the end product manufacturers. All of us will need to play a role in this, because the way it is different here is both process innovation and product innovation will go hand in hand. It's very different from traditional drugs, where you take a drug, but all the product innovation is then happened, and then you manufacture it. Here, the science will continue to evolve, and both of these things together will have to happen. Now, for that to happen, today the fact of the matter is 75 to 80% of the cost of manufacturing is through imported materials. And my recommendation, at least to both Dr. Paul, Dr. Behel and others, has been, how do we create an ecosystem in India? Because this therapy is groundbreaking. We will never have a situation where the millions of dollars that are being charged by global pharma companies will come and they'll be charged at 1/10 or 1/100 the cost. This problem has to be solved by Indian companies. And if this problem has to be solved by Indian companies, we have to build an ecosystem here with both global manufacturers who are willing to invest in India and with local companies, whether they are entrepreneurs or startups, who we can support as the industry to actually drive this innovation.
You're absolutely right. And in fact, I recollect when we were developing our liposomal product, initially it was a Sigma product being used in mice. And that seemed okay for a 10-gram mouse, but when we were to do it actually in patients, that was not going to be good enough. But then the product which was much low cost became a pharmaceutical grade, became available. So you're right, that it's important. But did you have much of a struggle with the Indian regulators, or was that in good order for you?
The therapy is a very new therapy, ma'am. I think all of us are learning right now as we are going along. The other thing is, a lot of this innovation happens in hospitals across the world, more than pharmaceutical or life sciences labs. So even our product was developed in Europe in a hospital. So it was not a traditional GMP facility. And that is something we had to continuously work with the regulators here. We are also seeing that now, as this therapy will grow, we have to think through how we create a separate pathway for cell and gene, because it's very different from biotech and traditional pharma, both with respect to how we do the trials, how we launch the product, what kind of safety we take up. So there's a constant discussion happening, ma'am.
So when we talk of right science and bringing value addition or reducing the cost, innovation, as you correctly mentioned, at various stages, as you and others mentioned. So I'm going to come to Priya and ask her as to, because you have also been on the forefront of the cell and gene therapies, what has been your experience, and can you share, again, I'm asking you the pleasures and pangs of working in this area.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Nilima. And to my esteemed panelists, good afternoon. And good afternoon to everyone. So yes, like Amit just rightly alluded, Miltenyi Biotech, I'll just take a quick minute to tell you what this is, because I've met a lot of people in the break and everybody was asking us what this company is. We are very new in India, but globally we are 35 years old. We have two arms. One is the biotech arm and the other arm is the CAR-T arm, so the cell and gene therapy. A lot of research has happened through our organization. In fact, if you look, we are probably the most published on Google Scholar when you look at research papers. About 46,000 papers are published by Miltenyi Biotech. So we are present in 73 countries, and we have just started operations in India last year, probably middle of last year. Very new team, and all of us are learning cell and gene, as Amit just mentioned, along with our regulators, along with the industry. But ma'am, to respond to what you asked, I think from an innovation perspective, there couldn't be something more innovative than personalized medicine. I remember when I was on the other side of the table with Pharma, we were all talking about how personalized medicine is going to take on and bring the day. Many of you in the audience would be knowing that about $306 billion have been spent on R&D by Pharma. And this, with all the cost pressures and everything else happening across the globe, is not sustainable. So the partnerships with academia, the partnerships with collaboration with tech is becoming mandatory. And that's where companies like ours come in, where we have the expertise for the tech, the deep expertise for the tech, where we do anything with this reference to cell and gene, which is graft engineering or creating a CAR-T, right from end to end with a fully automated system and a vein-to-vein time of 12 days. What's innovative for us, ma'am, that when we are partnering with academic institutions here. We are partnering with academic institutions globally. Of course, today, like Amit alluded to, the approval is in liquid tumors, but very soon you will hear of it in many, many, many other indications. And just to give you a glimpse, it could be autoimmune, it would be solid tumors, it would possibly even be diabetes, with my dear friend Vikrant, as we were just speaking. So if that is going to happen, it's not going to happen on the shoulders of the company alone. And we have already started that process in India, where we are meeting up or we are partnering with CMC Vellore. They have already done local manufacturing for CAR-T, and alluding to what Amit was saying, how do we make cost and value both balanced in India for Indian patients, where CMC Vellore is working on this. We've done the phase 1, we've already filed for the phase 2, and we should soon have good news on the phase 2. More than this, we are also partnering with translational institutes of the government, whether it's BIRAC or through the BIRAC, whether it's THSTI, or many other commercial institutions to make sure that there is a point of care. And what do I mean by point of care? Where hospitals are manufacturing, what Amit just spoke about, the GMP facility is created. Because right from the beginning to the patient, you have the product, the cell culture taken right there, leukapheresis is done there, then towards the end of 12 days in the automated system, you are able to produce the CAR-T and give it to the patient right there in the hospital. There are complications with CAR-T, of course, they're there with any medication, so there could be cytokine storm, which comes up, and therefore an ICU is mandatory when the patient is around there. So having a vein-to-vein time of 12 days, putting the patient in the hospital right there, and having with his trusted doctors, caregivers, and the environment that the patient is familiar with, I think we are being able to do that innovation in India today. Just one more point, ma'am, and I would allude to what academia does, and I think it was an interesting fact to see that almost all pharmaceutical companies across the globe, if we look at, they are based where the academic institutions come from. So if you see Boston, that's where you will find a lot of pharma coming up. Whether you look at UK, Oxford, or Cambridge, you will see a lot of pharma sitting there. So this partnership has always been there. It is about how we leverage it today and how do we bring innovation to the table.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you for that insightful mention about what is CAR-T cells. Many start wondering exactly what is CAR-T. That almost sounds like some sort of a car race or something. It's almost that. I'd just now move on to Achin and then to Maneesh, because you've been both involved in tackling antimicrobial resistance and coming out with new antimicrobial. How has that been challenging, and what have been your experiences in taking up this to come to a success story? We have all heard of the success story. Yes, please.
So, thank you.
Is it not?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Achin wants me to go first, so. So, I would talk mostly from my journey with the Enmetazobactam, the invention journey from, which is 18 years journey. So 2006 is when we invented this molecule at Orchid Pharma, and it's only in 2024 that we could launch this product after completing its clinical trials. So collaboration has been the major, hallmark, the way we did this. Because being an Indian company, innovations and innovation is one thing, but invention is totally different ballgame, where you are trying to create totally new antimicrobial. And unlike other therapeutic areas, of course, oncology has little parallels. You have a third enemy, which is the microbes, who have got their mind of their own, how they function. So you have to understand their psyche as well before you could tackle even how they behave with our human body. The microbes attack us, the drugs also attack us at the same time while they're treating us. So collaboration had been very, very critical for us. We collaborated with, and I just come back from the US FDA. I was working at the US FDA prior to coming to India, and I had a good network of scientists there. So we got in the strains necessary for tackling in the future, because microbes constantly evolve. So we had to have that forethought, how would the microbes evolve? So develop certain strains which could be, today you cannot do that anymore, but in those days the regulations were not much, so we could generate resistant strains in the laboratory, but under controlled conditions, and then find newer drugs to treat them, so that when the microbes evolve over a period of time, we have drugs to treat them. And so is Enmetazobactam now. because it is, even though it was invented in 2006, last year when we tested against 300 strains, we found the activity, it is still same highly potent. That means though the microbes have evolved, the drug has retained its potency. Collaborations, academicals, we work with several academicians in the US and in India to find the right kind of strains that are prevalent. So collaboration was part of it. And then regulations. Regulatory, and you mentioned that to him about regulators. I would say regulations are somewhere our country has to evolve a bit when it comes to inventions. Because we are a generic rich company, and we've been always so greening of a patent is not a thing in India, because you cannot, because we're a generic company. But when we have an invention, when we have finished 18 years of its life, we have 2 years to monetize it. Who would invest in such a drug when ROI on an infectious disease is already so low? So I think somewhere the regulators have to rethink on how to give, like in US and abroad, there is 5 years extension given for the market to sustain so that you can make some revenues back to yourself. So what Orchid did is, Orchid has not been present in India as a domestic market. So we have Achin. So we reached out to Cipla, and Orchid came to a marketing agreement now. So Orchid markets it as Orblicef, which means Orchid's beta-lactamase inhibitor with cefepime. And Cipla markets it as Cipennet, which is Cipla's Enmetazobactam, and also ESBL CIP, right? But two brands. So collaboration has been not only at the invention stage, also up to the marketing stage. Now we need collaboration from the regulators to help us to recover the costs as well, so that we can continue to invent newer molecules.
Yes, Dr. Chandrasekhar has left, I think. Otherwise, we
Yeah,
would
yeah.
have been happy to have him around to listen to. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Dr. Maneesh. So innovation and AMR has been a big theme for us, and we were very proud to partner with Orchid on this particular solution. Previously, we had partnered with Venus Remedies for another antimicrobial. We have one more which is coming up, hopefully in the next 1 month, which we had partnered with a US company that we are bringing to the market now. So if I come back to the original question that you asked, right? I think for us, we are looking at innovation across the life cycle, because when we are solving for healthcare outcomes and also recognizing the fact that we have a large footprint in India and we have a large footprint across a number of emerging markets, all of which have certain level of constraints in terms of who pays for these innovations and what are the health outcomes. So if I broadly segment it, we try to solve on diagnosis, we try to solve on drug delivery, and then we try to solve on innovation. All of these have slightly different challenges, but one theme which remains constant is partnerships, right? So innovation, what we just discussed, like the one that Dr. Maneesh mentioned on Orchid, we have quite a few partnerships ongoing. Like we have one with a German biotech who's using a lot of data analytics to have an inhaled route of delivery for mRNA, so, which is very unique and a very, let's say, high-risk approach as well, but we are going down that path. And we have a number of other partnerships on the innovation front itself, including stem cell technology partnership with Therapeutics and Camwell. So that end of the spectrum is, I would say, largely covered through partnerships. If I go to where the whole thing starts is diagnosis. And we know that in a country like India, a very small fraction of us who are having a particular condition actually go through a diagnosis. And, even out of that, most of us would not probably get the diagnosis fast enough or at the time when you are actually seeking treatment. So we've introduced a point-of-care solution, which, in 15 to 20 minutes, you can get your HbA1c, you can get your TSH, but you can also get some very complicated indicators like TROPI, which is very essential for deciding the course of treatment. So that's one thing we've done. Another example I'll share on that, which is very unique and very recent, is we've used AI to determine the risk of asthma. And this is on your phone. If you have the app, you just breathe into the phone. It gives you a red, yellow, green on what is your condition and whether you should be consulting a doctor for that. So these are some innovations we're doing on diagnostic because we want patients to find it easier to diagnose and timely, because that's the start of the journey. Same patient diagnosed later or incorrectly can obviously have more complications. And then drug delivery is another very important issue to be solved. So we are big in respiratory, and so we are #2 manufacturers globally for meter dose inhalers. And one of the challenges there is you have to actuate and you have to inhale at the same time, which takes a fair bit of training and skill, especially for people like elderly, etc., where this is an even bigger challenge to coordinate that dexterity, where we came up with a breath-actuated device. So it's called Synchro Breathe, and you put it in your mouth, you breathe, it automatically actuates. Now, again, that had partnerships. So we tied up with a precision engineering company. We went through a lot of hoops on that. Finally, we have the product, and very well liked by doctors and patients. So brilliant example of how you are solving for a real-world problem. And we presented at the ERS 2 years back. 99% patients found it easy. 98% found it easy to adhere to. So that's also a real-world problem. And likewise, now we're coming up with a inhaled insulin, which we had made a press release some time back, which will solve for mealtime insulin, right, and mealtime glucose control. Again, real-world issue, whether you want to be pricked, whether you find it easier, whether certain patients are just not able to use the other form of injected insulin. So we are trying to, and again a partnership, because this is with a US company which has partnered, and we ran all the clinical studies over the last several years in India to bring this product to market. So I think very good work that can be done. We just have to be very clear, what is it that we're solving for? Are we solving for a local problem? Are we solving for adherence? Are we solving for diagnosis? Or are we solving for pure innovation? There is work to be done on all of these. I think what my co-panelists mentioned, Vikrant is solving for very different things, Amit is solving for very different things, Maneesh is solving, and Priya is solving. We are all solving one piece of the puzzle, but together, if we can solve for the overall health outcome, I think we can make a big difference.
Thank you very much. And there are, of course, many questions, I'm sure, which we will have in our mind. But there's one question, one point that, or rather I would say two, but I'll take the first one. There's one point that runs across no matter whatever is the area of work that you're talking about, and that is the risk. And I mean, I'm not talking about risk in terms of financial risk. I'm talking in terms of the risk to the patient. While on one side, we want to use science for, quick and cost-effective and whatnot, value-based and everything for the patient, how do we ensure that there is no risk or less risk, or how do we assess risk? And that is, again, done throughout the innovation cycle. So I would just like quick replies to, what's your take on this, and starting from Vikrant, and then, because you mentioned about possibility, Priya, you mentioned about a possibility of cytokine storm and such things. So how do you actually take care of the risk management, and also post-marketing, because that's something which often, worries patient, and that worried us during COVID vaccine, which was, with an emergency authorization given. So 2 minutes for each, or 1 minute, sorry.
No, thank you very much. I think science is always evolving. The truth remains, but the science keeps on evolving. And in this evolution, regulators also keeps on evolving, right? So I can give you an example, like for example, in diabetes treatment, there used to be the phase 3 trial, which will happen, and then you will find that the product will come. And we all were having a little bit easier time in terms of doing those trials, which were, conclusive, and then you get the outcome. In the journey 10 years back or 12 years back, we got molecules which were like, They were good when it comes to glucose control, but they were not good for the heart. And then there were huge recalls across the globe, and we are all, some of us may be knowing about it, glitazones and all those kind of a thing. And then the cardiovascular trials came in the journey. So today, when we launched, some of our molecules have got delayed because of the long cardiovascular trials for 5 years, and that delays the journey of innovation to really commercialization and access. So risk, of course, delays innovation, but risk is also very necessary, And likewise, the pharmacovigilance studies, which we keep on doing, every kind of PSU, PSUR are there on the recording. So you can see the real world evidences keeps on coming, and they probably, mitigate the risk in terms of overall commercialization of the products across the globe.
Do you think that any research on biomarkers and such things have been of any benefit towards mitigating the risk, or whether any personalized care or any genetic markers which put more patients at risk? Because we talk of risk which may be rare, but when large number get treated, it becomes a real risk. So is there any such example that you can think about? Okay.
I personally think the biomarkers really will play quite a lot in terms of, and I think not only about the risk, but also the cost to outcome benefits as well. But again, it's at a very nascent stage. The genetic testing, genetic mapping, biomarkers. I think it is just the start. Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
I'm sure that as the therapies will keep on evolving, they will have a huge play in the healthcare ecosystem.
Yes. Yes, please, go ahead.
So, ma'am, in our case, the medication is the patient's apheresed blood, right, which we generate T cells from. One of the things I'd like to say is when we launched this product, I went and met all the top med-oncs and hemato-oncs in the country, and I realized that all of them uniformly would do what is best for the patient. There are many, many alternate therapies available, but if they're not convinced of the data, if they're not convinced of the outcomes, whatever grade the therapy we are talking about, they will not administer it to the patient. So that is one. The second is, as a philosophy, we actually have a very stringent screening protocol where almost 25% of the patients, we are refusing the drug, because our tumor board feels that they may or may not benefit, or they may be undue risk from that therapy. The third is, and of course we partner very closely with Priya's company, sterility and product manufacturing safety is very important because we are dealing with live cells. So we actually work in a very highly sterile GMP grade environment, and that's necessary for especially advanced medications that will come. So that's the way we are dealing with this.
Priya, can you tell us in terms of the cell therapy, gene therapy, and so on? For all other usual products, preclinical testing is something which is a benchmarking for kind of effect that you will get in terms of toxicity and so on. How does this work, animal testing for these cells, CAR-T and other cells?
So, ma'am, we do similar. We do animal testing as well, and preclinical testing that is done before a product is brought in to get into the phase 1. And because Amit has spoken of what is happening in the market, let me just reflect a little bit, because we're talking of the same therapy. What happens when we are in the preclinical and phase 1 stage? And at this point, I think there's a very, very open communication with both patients, HCPs as well as regulators. So we form a consortium sort of so that there is collaboration between them to share the data, very early signs. AI is used extensively because we are, like Vikrant mentioned, we are looking at genomic mapping, right? Over here, we're looking at a specific patient and how the CAR-T is going to help a particular patient. So there is vast sets of data that is looked at before administering to a patient. And therefore, the selection of those patients, even in preclinical trials and phase 1 trials, is very, very highly regulated, I would say. And in such cases, ma'am, if there are any evidences of any adverse events or anything that is going wrong, and that's why I mentioned that there is necessity of having an ICU, that if in 2% of the patients a cytokine storm appears, you're able to take care and the life is not put at risk.
Thank you. And Achin, I just thought in terms of, we just talked about post-marketing surveillance. Your products are marketed in many other countries. How do you deal with the post-marketing surveillance, the science of pharmacovigilance when it comes to your products being in so many countries?
So I think a lot of this is regulated, and a lot of this is also responsible marketing. Both the things are required. So since we are present in many different markets, including some of the most developed markets, pharmacovigilance system is a common system that runs across the whole of the organization. And all of that goes into a specific database, and from where the data is pulled out by us and by the regulators as well. So I think that's a fairly defined system, and for some of the more, let's say, complicated treatments, there are registries which share that kind of data across manufacturers. So a lot of that work is common, but what I would add here is the bit on responsible marketing as well. Like, for example, on AMR, when we introduced this new treatment, a lot of the focus was on having access to the right sensitivity disks in very large numbers, so that treatment is less empirical and more specific. So then a lot of investments on surveillance. So if you do all of those things, then I think the chances of treatment getting misused or patient getting something adverse reduce significantly, and that's what, as responsible manufacturers and marketers, we try to work towards that.
Thank you. We are not really getting into the issue of science of good quality medicines. That would require 2-3 days of sessions in any way by itself, not to talk about the cough medicines and what we have all been trying to read and follow. I'm also not getting, Dr. Huji might have some other thoughts when we talk about point of care diagnostic and the patient coming with that results. He might, I don't know what his thoughts on that are. But I just want to have one question to you, Maneesh, as to, what about Chinese competition? I mean, that's some Chinese competition from China. When we're talking about science, we talk about value, cost, and everything. But, can you comment in quickly? And then we'll ask the audience if they have any questions. Yeah.
Okay. I am coming from anti-infective space, so I say microbes know no boundaries, right? They just know Earth and Homo sapiens, that's it. They don't care which country they belong to. So the Chinese science may be progressing. It could be only from the IP or the manufacturing and those kind of aspects is where they come from. But when it comes to the science of it, I think we are doing quite well. One of the main things what we do is the surveillance, as Achin mentioned. Surveillance is one way how we protect our patients from the evolving strains, because though we have a treatment today approved for these indications, it doesn't mean that it is continuous. And that's the reason when we collaborated with Therapeutics for clinical trials, they did in 19 different countries to make sure that the drug is not reacting to various types of the regional makeup of human beings, right? This is the way how we bring in safety aspects as well. Chinese competition, I don't see it's anything to be threatened to us about.
Not in your field of work that you're talking about,
Yes.
And I'm sure not in CAR T cell, but in many others. So I just, we have a very short time for our closing. So if there are any 2 questions, anyone from the audience would like to ask any questions to our panelists? Anyone? It appears that you've all sorted out all the problems in the world, and nobody needs to have any further, maybe the postprandial period.
Maybe we can ask for closing remarks from you, ma'am, out of your expertise with your regards to the panel.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So thank you all very much. I think you've all elaborated extensively on your own areas of work, and there are several questions that we will have, and I was just discussing with some of you. The government of India has been supportive of clinical trials, product development, and as one of you mentioned here, that in this country we still have a gap of basic science being done from the academic institution, while the ICMR and the Department of Biotechnology have their institutions around the world, around the country, and they are doing a lot of good work. But I think we still don't have, like if I try to find out a basic science person in, for example, neuroinflammation or pain or how do the neurons work, there may be really handful of people who we may be able to find. But so that's a gap, and I'm sure that with support from industry and also from government, we should be getting there to support this drug development, and which is not only of good for India but globally. And thank you all very much, and thank you.